Hello and welcome back to George Past the Post. Over the last decade, we've seen several changes of Prime Minister, including on several occasions during the term of a parliament. In other words, we've changed the Prime Minister without there being a general election. And every time this has happened, not just in the last decade, but before then, there have been calls by some that there should have been an early general election so that the new leader could get a mandate of their own. And this has led me to decide to do this video, which is to look at whether, now obviously this won't happen, but whether there should be perhaps a law or some provision of some kind that does require an early parliamentary election in the event that the Prime Minister changes mid-term. So what are the arguments for or against this idea? Well, let's start with the pros of this. When we have a general election, while it's true that we do technically elect MPs, many people do vote based on which party leader they prefer. Therefore, in effect, a party, you could argue, wins an election because they have the most popular party leader. So if that party leader is removed as Prime Minister and somebody else comes in, they have no mandate at all. Now, the second argument for this idea is it might cause MPs to think twice before removing an incumbent Prime Minister that's won an election. Because if they knew that there would have to be a general election, which could result in them all losing their seats, they might not do it. And so this might actually lead to greater stability by allowing Prime Ministers to serve their full term. Now, the arguments against are sort of the, opposite of the 2 points I've just made. The first is, well, we are a parliamentary democracy. We do elect MPs. We don't elect party leaders. We don't directly elect the Prime Minister. That's the system that we have. Yes, people may vote, they may factor into their decision who the Prime Minister should be or which party leader they prefer, but ultimately it is a parliamentary system. So why, you could argue, should we have to have an election every time there's a new Prime Minister? We don't elect, that's the system we have. So if we want to have a directly elected executive leader, I suppose, or chief executive, then we either need to move to a presidential system, or we could potentially have a directly elected Prime Minister, but that would have to be a separate election, it could be argued. And the second point is, well, if we did have to have an election every single time there's a new Prime Minister, it would actually, potentially make things even more unstable. And, we'd end up probably having more elections than even an election enthusiast like myself would like to have. So, because let's just say, imagine if, now obviously if this system had existed, as I say, maybe Conservative MPs would have thought twice before removing Boris Johnson and then Liz Truss, for example. But let's say the timeline actually wasn't affected. We'd have had to have an election in, July or August or September 2022, and then another one in October 2022. And then who knows, the result of all that might have led to another election later on. And another point to perhaps consider is, would these, early elections, would they reset the whole timeline? So would it reset the clock for 5 years, or would it be within the 5-year term? What I mean is, in Scotland, they have a 5-year term for the Scottish Parliament, but if what is called an extraordinary election happens, it doesn't reset the clock. So that would be something that the hypothetical drafters of this law, which will never happen because this isn't going to happen, would have to think about. So hopefully you found this interesting. Let me know what you think is a good idea or not. Bye.